Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a Kickstarter preview. This one is for It's a Wonderful World from La Boite de Jeux. It is a drafting game mashed up with an engine building game. It has some common aspects that you've seen in other very popular games, and it's all put together in one.
It is a 1 to 5 player game in which each of us is going to represent an empire builder trying to build a tableau in front of us using developments. These developments are going to range from things like science or energy and so forth. They're all represented by cards and cubes that you see here. You're going to be drafting these cards at the start of every single one of these rounds and then placing them out in front of you and trying to produce them in order to gain those resources.
Yeah, it's very similar. If you've played games like Seven Wonders, that's how the first part of the game begins, with the draft. But it's a little bit more layered to that because you're going to be laying these cards out and then using them in a couple of different ways to hopefully build your empire or feed those development cards with resources that you need in order to build it.
All right, so let's talk about all the different components. As you first saw, there is a giant stack of cards in front of you. These are going to represent the numerous different developments in the game. When you look at these development cards, they are going to have some synergy between them though. In the upper left-hand corner of all of these cards, you're going to notice a cost, and these are going to range on all the different types of cubes that you'll have to have in order to build them. They also have a discard value. Sometimes you don't want to have these cards in front of you. You need the resources immediately from them. You can discard these cards in order to gain a very specific type of resource as well. They all have a production value if it is placed into your building area, and then sometimes they're going to have a building bonus the moment that you create that particular development.
Yeah, that building bonus is right here above where you'd see the production queue information. You're going to get that as soon as you construct this and add it to your empire.
The other thing you need to know about these cards, some of them provide straight up victory points for having them in your tableau at the end of the game. Other ones give you multipliers, and some of them are just used as an engine builder through the course of the game.
Yeah, so in addition to the development cards, you're going to have the main board here that houses all of the different resources that you're going to be able to collect, as well as these tiles down here. You've got financiers, which are a specific token that you're going to be able to collect that's going to be needed to do a number of different things. Some of the development cards require that. You're also going to have generals over here, very similar, but for different types of developments. And then in the middle here, you have the crystallium supply. These are going to be wild cubes that can represent any of the resources. To get these, you're going to be using your sort of leftover cubes. Once you have 5 of those below your board, you're going to trade those in for a crystallium.
And typically all of these resources are going to be used in order to build your developments. However, the two that he mentioned, the financiers and the generals, can be used to build very specific developments, but if you have them at the end of the game, they're also worth 1 victory point each. All right, to start the game, you're going to go through a draft. Everyone's going to get 7 random cards plus a starting building. The starting building is going to represent your empire and also give you some kind of direction on the resources that you'll be able to produce at the beginning of the game and maybe the kind of victory points that you're looking to acquire. For instance, this one gives me 3 victory points for every single blue building that I have in my tableau at the end. So I have some direction right at the start of the game. The draft's going to work like this. Everyone has 7 cards and you're simply going to pick one of the cards. You're going to lay it face down in front of you and pass the other ones to the player on your left. When that happens, everyone's then going to reveal that card and place it off to the right of their player empire. And you're going to have a large row of these by the end of the round. You're going to keep doing that for 7 turns until everyone has 7 cards splayed out to the right.
Yeah, and once everyone has 7 cards, then you're going to move on to the planning stage. The planning stage can be done simultaneously. You're going to be looking at all of the 7 cards that you've collected and doing one of 2 things with them. The first is you're going to be able to move that just above where that draft area is into your construction zone. When you have a card in your construction zone, that represents a development that you're trying to build into your empire. It's going to stay in your construction zone until you've put all of the required resources on it in order to build it. The other thing you're going to do is actually, like Jeremy said earlier, take a card out of your drafted cards and simply discard it. This is called recycling. When you recycle, you're going to get 1 resource of that color. Now, what's important to remember is whenever you collect resources in this game, you're going to be taking those resources and either putting them on cards under construction or below your board, your player board. So once you've collected 5 there, you're able to trade them in for crystallium. You're never able to hold on to any of the basic resources and then use them later.
If at any time you discard one of your cards or recycle it for a resource or the final resource you need in order to construct one of your developments, in this case I have a blue card, if I recycle this card and take a blue, you're going to notice that on my offshore oil rig, it's the last resource I need. Once that happens, I immediately can construct this, returning all the resources back to the supply. And this thing will give me a one-time bonus, in this case, a financier, which I'm going to take and place onto my side of the board. Then this is going to go into my stack that I've already completed. If I haven't completed any, it's simply going to go on the left-hand side of my player board. When you look at the left-hand side of your player board, it's going to have all the different production or developments that you've acquired. This is going to allow you to produce more through the course of the game.
And production is the next stage of the game. In production, you're going to be taking a look at all of the cards in your empire and collecting all of those resources, again, to use on cards under construction or placed under your player board. When you do this, you're going to start with the gray cubes and work your way one by one over to the blue. The other thing you're going to do is once everyone's collected all their gray cubes, whoever collected the most or produced the most is also going to get a token associated with the icon above that space. In this case, you'd collect a financier. This is one way you're able to collect the financiers and the generals throughout the game to use on future constructions or points at the end of the game.
And remember, as David alluded to, there are times when you're going to be able to use those cubes that you've just now produced to construct or finalize some of the developments you already have in your area. Again, removing those cubes back to the supply and placing them into your production queue, but they're only going to produce until the next round. You're going to do that for 4 different rounds, each time passing to the left 1 round and to the right on the next round for 4 rounds. At the end of the game, you're going to see how many victory points you have. Victory points are going to be only on the cards that have been finished or developed in your tableau. As we alluded to, a lot of these cards are either going to give you straight up victory points, which are located right on the bottom left-hand side of the card. Some of them are going to have multipliers for other types of cards that you have in your tableau. And then, of course, your empire, your base card, is going to give you some kind of natural set of victory points, again, for the different types of developments that you've created. Plus, all of your generals and all your financiers are also going to give you victory points at the end of the game.
Yeah, this is a very straightforward game that combines 2 very straightforward concepts, like we said, drafting and the engine building. But there are some layered and subtle strategies when you're trying to be very, very efficient, because the winner is going to be the person who's the most efficient at collecting those cards and collecting the right cards in their empire. There's also a very, very robust campaign. We've only been introduced to the first campaign, and this is going to be a 5-scenario campaign where you introduce new cards, not into the deck per se, but there's going to be cards that come out on the board. We don't want to ruin any of it for you, but there's a lot of things that happen. There's even branching paths that might happen throughout the scenarios depending on success. The first scenario, for example, has a communal project that sits out on the table that everyone can contribute throughout the game. If you contribute to it, you're able to collect some sort of bonus resource. And if at the end it's been completed, one thing might happen in a future scenario, or if it wasn't completed, something else might happen. So it adds an incredibly robust layer to this game that's really built on a very sort of simplistic concept.
So that is It's a Wonderful World from Boite. It is a 1 to 5 player game. Make sure you guys go to their Kickstarter page to see all the final components. If you have any questions, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, and everything else that we do, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.